Do you hear any questions this morning? So from Carl's message, here's the key. Are you willing to give up the fuss? Let's see about that. So my heartfelt prayer is that not only you hear the question that you, in the stillness that you experienced directly this morning, that the answer is a resounding yes. And that we heed that, not theoretically, but practically in action and in deeds. And indeed, understanding that I can change what hurts me. I can change what does not empower me. I can change what no longer interests me, that I can turn away from that I can experience the energy of an infinite, of which up until today I only theoretically understood. So the topic, as we look at your text, some of you are discovering and exploring The Untethered Soul, the book by Michael Singer, those here in Unity Village Chapel in groups and looking at that toward their own spiritual awakening and spiritual maturity. So from the chapters relevant to this week in the series of this, chapters 5, 6, and 7, infinite energy. How much do you believe that you have infinite energy? And what blocks you, what blocks me, what blocks us as a humanity from experiencing, from realizing it, and then from living it out? So what are some things that blocks you? I made a list, a personal inventory list I'll share with you that blocks me. Maybe one or two of you can relate. So where does your energy go? Thinking? Creating stories around the thinking? Making up stuff? Opposing thoughts, at war with thoughts, hold on to thoughts like it's possible, let go of thoughts like it's possible. If we could let go of thoughts, wouldn't we have done that already? I would have. Recalling thoughts. Wishing I could recall a thought. Some of you can relate, I see. Wishing I couldn't recall a thought. Generating emotion, seeking a feeling, seeking a high. Can you relate? The energy that goes into seeking. And then suppressing emotions. Depressing emotions. Denying emotion. Controlling emotions. Sound familiar? Sound depressing? Yes, no wonder. So instead, what are our options? So if there's an infinite energy, if I am one with that, if what we sing and say and pray, there's one power and one presence in all the universe and in my life, and that through my realization of that, through prayer meditation, my absolute application of that, the word becomes the deed, the word becomes the action. What are our options? What can you do differently? What can you put in your mind differently to change how your energy flows, how your energy is leaked off, the drag you have? So what are some things you can do to experience this energy, to have a new reality of this infinite energy, besides what we've always done? Are you willing to let go of the fuss? Are you really willing to let it go? Who would you be without your dramas? What would you talk about? Who would you be without complaints? Who would you be if you didn't have issues? Get a sense of that. Just touch in. Like, what happens in you when you believe the thought, I have issues? What happens to your energy? Say it out loud. True confessions. What happens to infinite energy when I believe one thought that I have issues? Depleted, drained, despair, give up, resignation, hopelessness. That's the power of one little bitty, unquestioned thought. That's the power of one little 5-letter word, issue. How many letters are in that we put here? That's the consequence of that. So what happens then to your energy when you call what happens in reality a problem? So imagine you go home today and there's a flat tire on your car, and you look upon the flat tire and call it a problem, call it awful, call it anything besides what it is, a flat tire. What happens to your energy? What happens to your connection to infinite energy? The minute you name it a problem, name it awful, what happens to your energy? Plummeted, cut off, unaware, believing this is who I am. This is who I am, and believing this is the life I have. So if you just change that one little thing to call a thing what it is, instead of a problem or awful or unfortunate, what would that do to shift your experience of infinite energy, infinite reality? So this is good news. Did you get that part? The gospel good news. It's possible. A little hope could emerge here today if we're not careful. We could leave here hopeful that, my goodness, I have a vote in this. I, in fact, do have an option or two until today I had not realized or explored. that what I name it, I experience. What I call it, I become it. So the key, the prison we're in is false. The prison we're in is a prison of the mind, and the door is wide open. The door's wide open. So what will it take for you to walk through? And see, if you leave here today free of your dramas and issues and complaints, the people you know and live with will think you're on a new medication. Or you had a really good meditation retreat. And they'd be right. So what thought would bind us to that old, painful, archaic way of being? What thought left unquestioned would bind you, would stick you into realizing this much energy instead of this much energy? And are you willing to do it? You know, it's the question. I'm called a lot of names out in the field. Some I can't repeat here. I'm called a mentor. I'm also called a tormentor. So if you have not been challenged by this message today, I have not done my job. So this work, our spiritual awakening, our spiritual maturity includes and empowers and invites and insists that we be challenged. That we be challenged to create a world that works for everybody, to create a world that is not that old world, is going to require us to drop some of that baggage and to begin to live this out. Not just theoretically, but in practice and in action. And then to do so gently so that, like, we never forget our own humanity and that we're hardwired for this and that we've been doing it a really long time. Our belief systems, our BS was formed a long, long time ago. Our belief systems, our BS, a long, long time ago, even before there, and that we're still under the Kool-Aid of that. We're under the effects of that. So there will be challenge to it. There'll be plenty of opportunities for us to apply it, even before you leave here. Somebody will cross you. And my prayer and heartfelt belief is that there's a voice inside of you going, there's another option. There's another option. Pain or peace. Old, painful way or new possibility way. How am I going to relate to this? That's the role I have. That's the one power and the one place in all the world that I have any control. In this moment now, in this interaction now, with what's in front of me now, how am I going to respond to this? Who am I going to be in this interaction? And the allure of the past is strong. It's mighty. The temptation of the mind to call it a drama, call it a trauma, call it an issue, call it a problem. The temptation is mighty. So lead me not into the temptation of mind. Deliver me from the error thinking. Deliver me from the old way. For thine is the kingdom. Thine is the infinite energy. thine is the possibility. I am. I am that. So get a sense of what it would be like when you leave here with a little hope. So some of the feedback I get is, Martha, you make a lot of sense. You really tell us what to do. You just don't tell us how. I find that shocking because I feel like all I'm ever doing is telling you how to do it and what to do. And I realize that it's entirely up to you. So the words that came on how to do this when I leave here is to choose and to choose again and to allow what is to be what is. That'll be a full-time job. It is for me. And then, are you willing to go through your own purification process? Are you willing to look at this BS and the consequences of holding the BS and the possibilities for you if you let it be? If you actually give up the fuss, the possibilities of that. The word I chose was transcendence, or the word that chose me. That's what came to me through the stillness. Who would I be if I was not operating in the BS? Transcendence. The willingness to allow and practice realizing that the center of consciousness, the center of the universe, the center of infinite energy and spirit is always stronger than the images and the temptations and the impressions and the past that are pulling me toward it. The realization that the center of consciousness, God as reality, infinite spirit, infinite energy is always present and always stronger than the temptations, the images, and the impressions that pull me back to the old way of being. So get a sense of it for yourself. You might close your eyes if it helps you to see and to experience energy. And imagine who you would be in exactly the same situations you're in. So the situations are not different. In exactly the same situations you're in right here, right now, currently. Who you would be in those situations. Transcendence. As transcendence. As allowing them to be what they are. And realizing you have another option. What would that be like? How would you relate to others differently if you stop calling them a problem? What would dropping the concept of problem do for your energy? If you were free of the concepts of problem, issues, dramas, if you were free of complaining, what would that be like? what would it be like to experience infinite energy? And what would it be like to live a life as infinite energy? So open your eyes when you can and look to anybody sitting beside you and tell them, I'm really glad you're here today. Those of you watching, look at somebody in your house and tell them, or look at you and tell you, I'm really glad you were here today. Now look back at that same person or people and say, however, this message was for me. You might lay a hand on their knee or on their shoulder or on their head and say, heal. Let's have a healing in the house. And then lay the same hand you used on your own head, on your own mind, on your own being, and say, heal. I am willing. I am willing. I am willing. If you can bear more torment, come over to the workshop.
Martha Creek.